Hey friends, welcome to this week's video. Sorry for the delay in some of the videos in terms of the normal schedule. Just been going through a little bit of seasonal depression that's been making me a little bit unmotivated to make certain things, so I have been trying to fill in the gaps with live streams and other things that are non-tech as reviews just to fill in those gaps, but you know, I'm trying to work through this creative rut that I'm going through. But I have been listening to you guys, so I did put a poll out there on the Anker Soundcore Liberty Pro 3s, and you know, you guys chimed in and we went with the black ones. This has been highly requested by a lot of you. Most of my earbud conversations in the comments have kind of went towards this earbud, and I want to make sure we got the right ones. I think you guys were really attracted to the fact that these had the gold hints. I know there was another one, I think the purple ones had a gold hint as well, but based on the polls we went with all the black. So black on black with a little bit of gold. Wake Forest, like my roommate's alma mater. But we are gonna go over these. So far in terms of me shooting this, I want you guys to keep in mind the fact that this is going to be a lot less outdoor than I normally do, just because weather's been sort of getting crappy around here. So I'm gonna do my best, because we do still need to go over distance and active fit, and I want to make sure that I do get some time outdoors. But I might get some rainy shots for y'all, just to compensate if that happens. But just keep in mind that this is gonna be a lot of inside my house shots. So sorry for the isolated views on this one, but I don't want to talk about this too much because obviously you guys are very interested in these. So let's get into specs and go on. Anker has put together some of the best packaging I've seen in true wireless earbuds. Definitely a bigger package than expected, but between the magnets, the ear tip and accessory caddies, and the minimal fluff packaging, it was truly an amazing experience, and it makes you want to keep the box, especially because everything is nestled in there so nicely. I prefer having this layout rather than a pouch where everything gets lost, especially because these give you so many tips and adjustability options. Bravo Anker, this organization was super dope. Moving on to the case, you get a matte aesthetic and a pebble form-like factor, and the case gives you an additional 24 hours that can be topped up either through USB-C or wireless charging in about 45 minutes. The front of the case has the LED lights for battery and status indicators, and finally it has a satisfying mechanism for sliding to access the earbuds. Non-traditional, but definitely pleasant. Overall, it's slim and pocketable with some solid battery behind it. Onto the earbuds, they look like little pebbles as well, but these are more shiny. The build is predominantly plastic and will have either gold or silver accents based on the color choice. They are quite low weight and can definitely disappear as you listen. Anker includes a lot of wing adapters so you can choose the best fit for your activity level. I found myself using the largest wings as they kept everything snug and comfortable. The good thing is that they factored this into the case design, so the buds will fit into the case regardless of which wings you choose. From a fit perspective, they feel wonderful in ear on a relatively low profile. The lightweight makes them great for long listening sessions, and I never really felt any fatigue at all. The controls are extremely responsive and don't require heavy touches. These are some of the most reliable controls I've experienced, and that says a lot when they give you a ton of gestures to set. We'll get more into that as we talk about the app later in this review, but for now let's move into the field and talk about active fit. During the workout, the Liberty 30 Pros performed admirably well. I did notice that there was some adjustment needed at the start of the workout, but that need for adjustment stopped after the first half hour. The silicone tips might have a film that needs to be broken through, or they just may need to be softened up a bit, but regardless, after that initial break-in period, I almost never had to adjust them through my jumping, running, change of directions, and calisthenic work. I also did not notice any sort of stethoscope effects from heavy steps, so my music sounded uninterrupted and solid throughout my entire session. Moving on to connectivity range, the earbuds maintain a link from quite a far distance as long as you don't have LDAC on. Due to the nature of LDAC, there is some range loss to prioritize sound quality. However, if LDAC is not on, I was able to run out 50 yards or 46 meters away from my phone before music would start getting inconsistent. While I could not find an official projected range in their spec sheet, 50 yards is well above the average from what I've tested in earbuds this year, which usually cut out around 35 yards. So amazing job done here by Anker yet again. And while we're outside, let's look at some mic tests. Alright, so here's the recording on the Soundcore Liberty 30 Pros.
on outdoor settings, there's quite a bit of wind whipping around the corner of the buildings, and some cars passing by, and even more wind. So you guys can tell me if you're hearing what's coming through, but this should give you a good understanding of how this will sound over a phone call, if you are outdoors running errands and things like that. But yeah, there's a ton of wind, so you're probably hearing all of this, but we will see if there's any sort of wind protection. And yeah, let me know in the comments how that sounded, but let's move to an indoor recording so you know how this sounds normally. So this is a recording of the Liberty Pro 3s indoors. Obviously, no ambient noise around, no windows open, pretty isolated sound environment. Obviously not most optimized. I don't have little pads everywhere because I'm not bougie, at least not yet, but maybe in the future. But hopefully this gives you a good understanding if you can use this for calls with friends or for work, and if everything's coming in clear. From the input that I've received from my clients and my friends is that these come in extremely clear. There's not really any interruptions. I don't sound muffled. I sound very clear and enunciated on the call. So it was a pleasurable experience over various hours of conversations. However, I did get a piece of input that I thought was interesting. They did say that due to my speaking behavior or my speaking mannerisms, I do end up coming harsh at times, and I think that's because when I'm trying to make an emphasis of a point, or if I'm trying to guide people through, or if, I don't know, just if I get really excited about the topic, I will elevate my voice. So there'll be times I'm really into the conversation, engaged, like I'm physically in there. I'm physically using my hands and my shoulders and really like leaning into the phone that is pretending like they're seeing me or something like that, but I am being very active, so I do get a little bit louder, so I can see why they think that I would come off a little bit harsh when I get into those modes. So I think that's because the microphones are tuned up a little bit higher from a volume perspective to pick up that extra detail, but you guys have to tell me if you're seeing the same thing as something I would do on the phone. But I have noticed that with this one, I try to chill a little bit more. I try to talk at a more even, calm tone and be less animated so that I'm not affecting the experience of the call to the audience on the other side. So you guys can tell me if you've noticed any difference, if you're seeing that harshness on these headphones. But overall, I've been very pleased with how I've been coming off to other people as well as what I'm hearing on the other side. There have been a couple times where I've had some connectivity issues, but it's not consistent enough where I think that it's going to be an issue for any of you guys. The connectivity was very, very strong in terms of calls, and I never really had any drops outside of things that were network related. So I think they work extremely well, especially on the phone. We also can do the computer, and I had similar conferencing experiences with that, with no lag in terms of video conferencing or anything like that. But because it can multi-connect, we should talk about that. So let's go with that.
With the multi-connect, it's something that I have been wanting for a very long time since I've had the Jabra 75T actives. That is like one of the best features that I could have on earbuds, and not enough people do it in a seamless way that has matched Jabra. However, these Soundcores finally have done that. So despite all of the $400 headphones I've tried, the $300 headphones I've tried, the $200 headphones I've had, these $170 headphones do it. And they do it pretty seamlessly once you get set up. I will say that there was a little bit of a frustration getting the devices onto it, but once I got the hang of it, it was pretty simple, and it remembers them all. So I think I've connected 4 devices, my personal computer, my iPad, my 2 phones, one which is the Pixel I destroyed, unfortunately. But they're all in there, and I could easily access them through a menu and toggle between them, and it's as simple as that. It's just choosing your 2 devices that you want multi-connected, and you play music on one and it plays, and you stop that music and play it on another and it plays. So it's as seamless as the Jabra, and I freaking love that. So connectivity wise, these are great. These are going to be a really good excuse to use these for your daily drivers, and they're probably going to help you with your productivity heavily. So multi-connects, amazing. So no issues there. One of my favorite features of these guys. But from there, we should probably talk about sound. ANC and ambient sound perspective, they do an admirable job. They do not go as dominant as, let's say, the Sonys or Apples or Boses of the world for sure. However, they're really close. So I would say that they're better in terms of ANC than the Neurotrus. They're better than the Jabras. They're better or equal to the Sennheisers. They're better than the Technics. So they're better than a lot of, you know, earbuds in their range. They just don't hit that top god tier of the Sonys and Apples and Boses, and you know, that's kind of their main thing, and they sacrifice audio as a result. So that's the reason why. But it kind of falls in just under those in terms of effectiveness for ANC. In terms of the transparency mode, it is also equally as effective. You can hear a lot and you can tune it into what you want in terms of a voice or a fully transparent mode, and everything comes in very audible. The only thing that I did notice is that when you are actually using the full transparency mode, things come in a little bit less natural. So in comparison to, let's say, the Techniques or the Master and Dynamic MW08s or a lot of the, or what is the other one that was really, the Neurotrus, it just comes in a lot more digitized. So it still sounds great, it still sounds like you can hear everything, but it's just not as natural. Like voices don't come in as naturally, certain sounds and air whooshes don't come in as naturally. So that is something to keep in mind if that matters to you, but it's not offensive in any sort. It's not going to be super digitized, so I think it's a pleasurable experience overall, and it's pretty moderately effective for all use cases. So definitely admirable in those senses. But let's go into some sound samples so you guys can hear for yourself. So as we talk about the sound signature for the Soundcore Liberty 3 Pros, I want to start off by saying there's a lot of things you can do in the application to customize the sound here. And we'll get into some of those modes as we get into the live samples, but it's really hard to review this because there's so much stuff to do in here. So starting off, you have the ability to tune these towards your ears. You can use the standard Soundcore option in terms of the standard signature. You can introduce 3D sound. They have a bunch of presets for their equalization, and you can introduce your own custom EQ. A bunch of ways you can manipulate the sound so that it fits your mood. The biggest thing that I would say is that with those settings, unless you do your custom obviously, they are quite tailored towards certain sounds, so they may not work well if you're a big shuffler in your playlist. But overall, I think that the sound signature is extremely pleasant across genres, especially if you find the right sort of tuning. They are quite V-shaped in terms of like they really make the vocals and the bass, they're more emphasized. So, you know, voices sparkle, basses hit really heavy, and it doesn't really get muddy at instances except for a few different areas, which I'll talk about at some point. But yeah, I think that's a very popular signature with headphones these days, just to make them seem more dramatic, but it does miss some details. So like some of the nicer headphones have like the mids boosted up a little bit to make it a little bit more equal, and that's where some of that detail is lost with these, I would suppose. So as I was looking through like sort of what I was listening through on my stream with my viewers, the say example Flies Me off the new Silk Sonic album, everything was really, really good. The bass was balanced well, voice recognition is very easy, and Anderson .Paak sounds super dope. However, there were certain elements, like let's say the cowbell that they introduced, that get overpowered by the bass a bit. And I was listening to some of the reference stuff, and yeah, it just didn't stand out as much as it would on a normal, like, flat reference set. Also, I've noticed that with certain voices, the grit that you would normally feel with it isn't there. So I think, what is it? So things like Nate Dogg or Bruno Mars, their voices don't come out as gritty as a result of that sort of detail being missed in the mid. But again, overall the sound signature sounds really, really good. Other things that I've seen that was kind of annoying to me was when I think for dance music, this is extremely good. Dance music, radio music, so like things like The Weeknd, things like One Republic, like the very mainstream sound is gonna work. So most of your music is gonna sound great on this. So like I ran this through a lot of the top 50, and it sounds great across multiple stuff. It's when I started going into sort of like smaller niches or more hardcore versions of the songs that I would find issues. So like, let's say we did like No Sunshine from DMX. That was extremely overpowered in the bass. The bass just wobbles and gets out of control, and it just sounds really unbalanced. The grit of DMX's voice is lost to that bass, and that's the big characteristic for him. So that was really an issue for that song. Let's see. Same thing with So Many Tears from Tupac. There was just some areas that outpunched Pac's voice, so not something that I appreciated. And there's one more song that kind of which one was this? Oh, Foundation by Bronson and ODYSSEE. My friend Samika recommended this on the stream, and and when we went through it, it was super muddy in terms of like it just kind of overpowered everything, and it lost power. So certain songs, especially if they have strong bass lines, may get overpowered because of that lack of mid to balance it out. But like I said, I tried like a lot of top 50s, and it sounds great. Like it sounded great at 11 p.m. from Maluma. Bad Habits by Ed Sheeran sounds extremely good. I couldn't find a single issue with that song. So depending on what you listen to, you may get different options. The other thing I'll say is that if you do listen to sort of those more hardcore or more bass heavy things, you can tune it down because they have a bunch of options to customize it, but it won't be as dramatic as you would expect or you would want. So it still is bass heavy and treble heavy. Even when you bring those down and you bring up the mids just don't come up with the clarity and balance that you would hope by switching it that way. But I've said a lot. There's a lot for you to digest, and as a result, there's a lot of sound samples that I have to give you guys. So I'm gonna go through literally like 5 to 6 minutes of sound samples. So we'll start off with the Soundcore natural, just how it sounds, flatline, and then we'll go into sort of the sound modes. I'll compare it against the EQs. I'll add the 3D sound in it. So like, just bear with me. I'll try to label this stuff as much as I can, but there's a lot of stuff to unpack here, so have a listen. So as we do, let's wrap up with the app. And this app is wonderful. I'm not gonna lie, probably one of the best executions I've seen. It allows you to manage your devices. If I go into the actual settings of it, I can, toggle all those ANC modes that I mentioned, all those sound modes I can mention. Again, it has a wind reduction mode that will work outdoors for your microphone. You can switch your audio controls between add LDAC. You can introduce 3D sound, all that sort of stuff. And the biggest thing that I love is that it has so many controls. Can we talk about this? It has so many controls. I love it. I love the fact that it has single tap, double tap, hold 2 seconds, and tap 3 times. So for me, single tap, I use voice assistant on the left and play pause on the right. Double tap, I use ambient sound on and off, or ambient sound cycling, and next track. Hold 2 seconds, left side is negative volume, positive volume. I do wish with the hold, it would continually enact that action. So instead of holding twice to do volume up and down, I would hope that it was like, I forgot which one it was. I think it was the techniques where I could just hold it and then it would go down, continually go down until I stop. But it's better than nothing. And then 3 taps, I've done ambient sound switching and previous track. So mostly playback here, other features on the left side. But that's so many controls. No one else does that. And I don't know why, but that is simple. That is great. I love that. Like, the only other person that does it that good is probably Sennheiser. That's given me that much control in my headphone. I think the techniques to an extent. But I'm happy with this. In terms of the usability of this, again, we've talked about the multi-connect mode, which looks great and behaves great. But this app also just always stays connected. There's no drops, there's no losing your headphone. It has everything you need. It has fit testing, it has, optimizations. Everything that you need is in one app, and the menus are pretty intuitive, so they're not buried in like ugly, like let's say the techniques. But yeah, this app, love it. So there's not much else to say in terms of this review. It's been a long one, but thank you guys for sticking with me. Let's wrap this up into my final thoughts. So Liberty Pro 3s, easy recommendation, not gonna lie. The biggest thing for me is that these are the most hassle-free headphones I've ever tried. Startup, connectivity, reliability of controls, they're just gonna get you through any use case that you have. It doesn't matter how technologically savvy you are or not. I could give these to my mom and she could set these up with no issue. I just like the fact that I could switch devices relatively easy without any sort of hiccups. I've been able to use the controls with high reliability and customization, so I can get exactly the controls I want, all my earbuds, and never have to reference my phone. And the connectivity, being able to connect between multiple devices, as well as having consistent call quality, is amazing. So I can use this for working out, listening to podcasts. I can use it for work. I can use it for phone calls with friends. I can use it for games. I can use it forever, and it's gonna hold up. So the easiest setup and usability from a headphone that I've tried so far. Doesn't matter in terms of range. So if you're looking to pick this up, I would recommend it absolutely. However, there is something that I've been noticing in the comments. You guys have asked for these a lot, but I think some people are mentioning that these would outpunch like the EQs or the PI7s, and I think we need to bring down our expectations a little bit. I know those are heavily priced at $400, but there's a reason why they are that expensive, and I know there's marketing, R&D, stuff like that bumps up the price and can make it like sort of like unreasonable. But we can't ignore the lineage of those companies. So things like Sennheiser, Bang & Olufsen, Master Dynamics, and some other companies out there, they've been doing this for a long time, and they've been doing it with microphones, studio equipment, other things in audio that give them that history and that experience to finally tune their devices, as well as build their dynamic signature. So while these sound great, and I don't think anyone will have an issue with how they sound, if you start comparing those to those things that are over $200 or $250, you'll start noticing the differences in terms of separation, clarity, dynamics, and punch. So like these do a really good job in terms of, you can throw a lot at it and it'll sound good. You can EQ it and it'll sound good. Just certain things and those refinements, especially as we talk about the mids. that usually bring in that clarity just aren't here. Like if you want your thing to sparkle really nicely, you can tune that. If you want this to thump really hard, these will do that. However, if you want the mids to come out, you can tune it, but it's not going to bring that clarity that like the Bang & Olufsen EQs would, or the PI7s from Bowers & Wilkins. Like those just do those things so well, and they're so just nicely tuned that they work across whatever you need with minimal tuning. So that I just want to keep that out there, is that if sound is your major priority, you will still enjoy these. However, you may not enjoy them as much as some of those other more pricey ones. So again, let's keep our expectations realistic, and you know, this is a great all-rounder option, especially at this price range. Like these make me think about my recommendations in the past, and these might start being something that I compare everything to. But yeah, obviously, if you are new here, please consider liking, subscribing, commenting, do all the things you normally do on a video that you like and love. And to my OGs, thank you so much for this recommendation. I love that you guys are tuning in again, and that you are giving me amazing products to test out and giving stuff to add to my collection. Like, you know, usually for me, I'm a big return guy, but you guys have given me an option that I simply can't and I must keep around. So thank you so much, and I appreciate all the content. I appreciate you guys also being very, very patient with my schedule. I know that I haven't been getting the same videos that you guys are used to every week, but I'm trying to get something just to make sure that I'm still staying engaged with you guys. You see my face, I get to talk with y'all, because that is sort of helping me through this seasonal stuff. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and yeah, all the new subscribers has been awesome. I think we're at 1,160, something around that range. So it's really cool that I'm still seeing the growth there, and I hope to engage with you guys on a future video. But as always, for now at least, appreciate ya. See you soon.